And 3 minutes ago isn't really when this story starts. It actually begins 10 full days before anyone on Earth even knew this object existed. And by the very end of this video, you'll understand exactly why two of the most powerful telescopes ever built, James Webb and the Vera Rubin Observatory, both ended up staring at the exact same object without ever planning to. On July 1st, 2025, a survey system called ATLAS, which stands for Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, spotted something moving through our solar system from a facility in Rio Hurtado, Chile. At first it received a technical label, C/2025N1, but within days astronomers confirmed something remarkable. This object wasn't from our solar system at all. It had come from somewhere else entirely, out of interstellar space, and it was only the third such object ever confirmed in human history. It was given the name 3I/Atlas, and almost immediately, observatories around the world turned their attention toward it. Here's where the story gets genuinely interesting. A few weeks after the official discovery, scientists working with the brand New Vera C. Rubin Observatory in Chile went back through their archived data, just routine housekeeping, checking old test images from a testing phase called science validation. And there it was, sitting quietly in the background of images taken on June 21st, 2025, 10 full days before Atlas ever announced the discovery, was 3I/Atlas. Nobody at Rubin Observatory even knew it was there at the time. The telescope wasn't hunting for interstellar objects that night. It was simply doing calibration work, testing its systems, pointed in a direction that happened purely by chance to include the exact patch of sky where this interstellar visitor was quietly passing through. Rubin continued to accidentally photograph the object all the way through July 20th, 2025, collecting nearly 100 exposures in total, and researchers eventually used 49 of those images in a full scientific study. This makes Rubin Observatory's images among the earliest and highest resolution pictures of 3I/Atlas that exist anywhere on Earth, captured entirely by accident before most of the world even knew the object was real. What did those images actually show? Quite a lot, honestly. Rubin's data revealed that the object had a growing coma, meaning a cloud of gas and dust surrounding its core, and that cloud expanded by more than 50% during the observation window. The object moved closer to the sun and started heating up. That alone is completely normal comet behavior. But there was one detail that genuinely surprised scientists. The object had a dust tail pointing toward the sun instead of away from it. Under normal circumstances, a comet's tail points away from the sun because sunlight physically pushes dust particles backward. A sunward-facing tail is rare, though not unheard of. Researchers have seen a similar effect in at least one other distant comet before. Scientists explain this using something called anisotropic dust emission, essentially meaning the dust wasn't being released evenly in all directions from the object's surface, which can create unusual tail shapes depending on the angle of observation. It's a strange, interesting detail, but it's explainable science, not a mystery with no answer. Before we go further into the chemistry side of the story, it's worth understanding exactly what kind of telescope managed to catch this object completely by accident. The Vera C. Rubin Observatory sits on a mountain called Cerro Pachon in Chile, a location chosen specifically because of its dry air and dark skies, ideal conditions for observing faint objects in deep space. Its main mirror is 4 meters wide, roughly as wide as a tennis court is long, and attached to it is the LSSD camera, the largest digital camera ever built, capable of capturing 200 megapixels in a single image. At the time it photographed 3I/Atlas, this observatory hadn't even officially started its real mission yet. It was still in a testing period called science validation, essentially a dress rehearsal phase where engineers and scientists check every part of the system, the optics, the camera, the software pipelines before the real 10-year survey begins. During this phase, the telescope is pointed at various patches of sky, simply to test image quality, calibration accuracy, and system reliability, not to hunt for specific objects. That's exactly why nobody realized 3 I/Atlas was sitting inside these test images for weeks after they were actually taken. Researchers only found it later, after the official discovery announcement, when they went back through the archived commissioning data specifically to check whether it might have shown up earlier by coincidence, and it had, hiding quietly in the background of ordinary calibration images, 10 full days before the rest of the world even knew to look for it. Here's the part that shows just how good this discovery process actually was. Rubin captures images across 6 different filters, covering different colors and wavelengths of light, often referred to using the letters U, G, R, I, Z, and Y. Scientists were able to measure the object's position across all of these different bands with a typical precision of about 70 milliarcseconds, an extraordinarily tiny angle when you consider how far away and how faint the object actually was at that point. For comparison, Rubin's general precision on fixed, unmoving background stars is even sharper, closer to just 3 milliarcseconds. So the slightly coarser precision on 3 I/Atlas simply reflects the challenge of tracking something that's actually moving relative to the background sky. This level of detail allowed the research team, led by astronomer Colin Orion Chandler, along with more than 300 other collaborating scientists, to publish a full paper analyzing astrometry, meaning precise position tracking, along with the brightness, shape, and activity levels of the comet, based entirely on this accidental early data. So why does it matter that Rubin and Webb both ended up looking at the exact same object? Because together, they represent 2 completely different but equally powerful ways of studying the universe. Rubin Observatory is built for speed and coverage, scanning huge sections of the sky constantly, which is exactly why it accidentally caught 3 I/Atlas in the first place, purely because it happened to be testing its systems in the right place at the right time. Webb, on the other hand, is built for depth, for extremely detailed, extremely precise observations of one target at a time, which is exactly how it managed to pull apart the comet's chemistry down to individual molecules and isotope ratios. One telescope found the object first, completely by accident. The other telescope figured out what it actually was, where it came from, and roughly how old it is. Neither discovery would mean nearly as much without the other. Rubin gave scientists the earliest possible timeline and detailed shape data. Webb gave scientists the deep chemical proof needed to trace this object's origin back billions of years into the history of our galaxy. The story also says something bigger about where astronomy is heading right now in 2026. The Vera Rubin Observatory officially began its 10-year survey of the sky on June 30th, 2026, called the Legacy Survey of Space and Time. Its entire purpose is to scan the sky repeatedly every few nights for an entire decade, catching exactly these kinds of unexpected objects, asteroids, comets, and rare interstellar visitors, often before anyone else even knows to look for them. The fact that Rubin managed to accidentally photograph an interstellar comet before it was even officially discovered, while it was still in its testing phase, months before its real survey even began, is a genuine preview of what this observatory is going to be capable of once it's fully up and running night after night for the next decade. Scientists expect more interstellar objects to be found over the coming years as this survey continues. And when they are, there's a very real chance Rubin Observatory will be one of the first instruments on Earth to spot them, simply because, unlike almost every telescope before it, it genuinely never stops watching the sky. Meanwhile, James Webb continues doing exactly what it was built to do, taking whatever object gets discovered, wherever it comes from, and breaking its light down into detailed chemical evidence that tells us where it was born and how old it is. This is possible because Webb operates far out in space itself, orbiting roughly 1.5 million kilometers from Earth, away from the heat and light interference of our own planet, allowing its infrared instruments to detect incredibly faint signals that would otherwise be completely lost from telescopes sitting on the ground. Together, these 2 observatories, one constantly scanning wide areas of sky from a mountaintop in Chile, and one capable of incredibly precise, deep analysis from deep space, form a kind of early warning and deepened
antioxidant content actually lives, is a simple and satisfying evening choice that also happens to feel like a real snack rather than a clinical intervention. The mistake to avoid here is reaching for apple juice or pre-made applesauce with added sugar, both of which strip out the very fiber that makes the whole fruit useful in the first place. A whole apple and a glass of apple juice are, from your kidney's perspective, almost entirely different foods. Now, tart cherries work on something almost nobody else discusses in this context: the sleep and blood pressure dip connection I mentioned earlier when we talked about the overnight repair window. Tart cherries are one of the very few natural food sources of melatonin, the hormone your body uses to regulate its sleep-wake cycle. Better sleep quality has been linked in multiple studies to a healthier overnight blood pressure dip, and remember, that dip is exactly what gives your kidneys their nightly break from constant pressure. A small glass of tart cherry juice, about 4 ounces, or a small handful of dried tart cherries, eaten roughly an hour before bed, is a reasonable amount to work into your routine. Watch carefully for added sugar in the juice. Many brands sweeten it heavily, which again undercuts the benefit. And if you're currently on blood thinners such as warfarin, please talk to your doctor before adding tart cherries regularly, since they can interact with certain medications affecting blood clotting. This is exactly the kind of detail that seems small but matters, and it's not something to guess about on your own. All right, everything up to this point has mattered, but what I'm about to share now is where the real conversation begins. These next two are the ones patients come back and tell me actually changed how they think about their evenings entirely, not just their fruit bowl. Strawberries deserve real credit here, and here's the part that genuinely surprises people. Within about 3 days of consistently swapping a salty evening snack for a cup of sliced strawberries, many people report feeling noticeably less puffy around the ankles and eyes first thing in the morning. Within a couple of weeks, some notice their evening blood pressure readings, if they happen to track them at home, sitting a touch lower than before. Within a month, some notice they're getting up fewer times overnight to use the bathroom, likely because their body isn't working as hard to manage excess fluid retained from a salty evening routine. Strawberries are rich in vitamin C and additional anthocyanins, similar to blueberries, and they're naturally low in sugar compared to many other fruits, which makes them one of the most kidney-friendly options on this entire list, pound for pound. About 1 cup, sliced, eaten plain, or with a small amount of plain yogurt stirred in, is an ideal evening portion. Choose organic when your budget allows, since strawberries tend to carry more pesticide residue than many other fruits, though washing thoroughly under running water still meaningfully reduces this. Either way, pineapple is the one people never expect to see on a kidney health list, and it's here for a very specific reason. It's naturally low in potassium compared to many other fruits like bananas or oranges. For most people with healthy, normally functioning kidneys, potassium from fruit isn't a concern at all. Your kidneys handle it easily and efficiently, filtering out the excess without any issue. But for a subset of people managing more advanced kidney disease, potassium does need to be watched closely, because kidneys that aren't filtering efficiently can allow potassium to build up dangerous levels in the bloodstream, which can affect heart rhythm. This is important enough that I want to be direct about it. If you've been diagnosed with chronic kidney disease, especially stage 3 or beyond, please talk to your nephrologist or primary doctor about your specific potassium limits before making any significant changes to your fruit intake. Citrus fruits like oranges and grapefruit fall into that same category of consideration, wonderful for kidney health in most people, rich in vitamin C and antioxidants, but something to discuss with your doctor specifically if you're already managing existing kidney disease or take medications affected by grapefruit. This is exactly the kind of decision that should be personalized to your own labs and your own doctor's guidance, and nothing in this video is a substitute for that conversation. And now we arrive at the one that changes the entire conversation. It's not a fruit at all, it's timing. The single biggest factor in whether any of these fruits actually help your kidneys is what you eat alongside them and how close to bedtime you eat it. And here's why most people never get the results they're hoping for, even after they start eating healthier fruits. They add a healthy fruit to their evening, but they eat it right alongside the salty snack they were already having, essentially piling it on top rather than replacing anything at all. Or they eat everything so close to lying down that digestion itself disrupts their sleep quality, which then disrupts the very blood pressure dip we've spent this whole video trying to protect. It becomes a case of one hand giving while the other takes away. You don't need to overhaul your entire evening to fix this. Here's what the evidence actually supports, stated in plain, practical terms. Replace your existing evening snack with one of the fruits we've discussed today, rather than simply adding fruit on top of what you already eat. Finish eating at least 1 hour before you actually lie down, giving your digestive system a head start before your horizontal. And keep your overall evening sodium intake low across the board, not just avoiding salty snacks, but also staying mindful of sodium hiding in things like canned soups, deli meats, or salted nuts. That way, your body isn't fighting against the nighttime blood pressure dip you're so carefully trying to protect. Think about how simple that actually is once you break it down. 3 moves: swap, not stack. Stop eating an hour before bed. Watch the hidden sodium. That's the entire strategy behind everything we've covered so far, and it's the reason why some people eat healthy fruit every single night and still see no improvement in their morning puffiness or their labs. They're doing the right thing at the wrong time, or doing the right thing while canceling it out with everything else on the plate. This is exactly why Carol's doctor didn't jump straight to a prescription when her filtration numbers dipped. He knew that before reaching for medication, it made sense to look at what was happening in that final hour of her day, because so often that's where the real leverage is hiding in plain sight. Most people spend years assuming that kidney health is something that either happens to you or doesn't, something dictated purely by genetics or bad luck. But the research doesn't support that fatalistic view. It supports something far more empowering, that a handful of specific, repeatable choices made in a narrow window each evening can meaningfully shift your trajectory over months and years. I want you to notice something about every single food we've covered today. None of them required a dramatic lifestyle transformation. Nobody had to give up entire food groups. Nobody had to start counting calories obsessively or joining a gym they'd quit within a month. Robert didn't overhaul his diet. He added a handful of blueberries in the evening. Dorothy didn't stop eating the foods she loved. She added unsweetened cranberry juice as a preventive habit. James didn't need a nutritionist on retainer. He added a small handful of grapes with the skin still on. These are small, boring, sustainable choices, and that's exactly the point. The kind of change that actually sticks around for years is rarely dramatic. It's rarely the kind of thing that makes for an exciting before and after story. It's quiet, consistent, and easy to maintain even on a bad week. That's also why the timing piece matters so much more than people initially expect. It costs nothing. It requires no shopping list, no supplement, no appointment. It simply asks you to shift when you eat your evening snack and to notice what's riding along with it in terms of sodium. And yet this single adjustment, done consistently, is the difference between a fruit that helps your kidneys and a fruit that just sits alongside the same salty habit that's been quietly working against you for years. If you take nothing else away from this video, take this: the fruit matters, but the window matters more. Get the timing right, and even a modest fruit choice starts paying dividends. Get the timing wrong, and even the best fruit on this list won't be enough to outrun the sodium